Alrighty. Good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to see you all. So today I will be talking about herbal medicine and how you can make that nice and easy and accessible in your everyday life in bits and pieces. And we're also going to demystify homeopathy as well, because a lot of time people get the two thinking that they're the same. Okay, there's that one. All right. So my name's Karlee. I'm a herbalist and a Reiki master. I've been practicing now for, over a decade with herbs and clients. Some of you may have also seen me up at Health 2000 in Highbury. So if I'm not, well, pretty much I'm there all the time. So yeah, so I'm really passionate about herbs and helping my clients be able to just support their overall health and well-being. Okay, so what is herbalism? So herbalism is basically just the practice of using plants as medicine. It's pretty much that simple. Whether you're using the whole plant or part of the plant, so roots, leaves, berries, flowers, it's all herbalism. It's one of the oldest traditions in terms of healing. So there's most countries have their own, so traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, we do have obviously Western herbal medicine, and they're also being practiced today. So that means that they've stood the test of time and they're around because they work. Okay, so herbalism had humble beginnings. Generally we observed the animals and generally the animals, to see what they ate and what they didn't eat. Also, little Johnny, if he ate the berries and he dropped dead, well then the tribe learnt that they didn't eat those berries. And herbalism, basically you were able to use simple tools. It's not something that you needed special things to be able to use. So how herbalism works. Which slide are we up to? I'm so sorry, I did far too many slides and I tried to do my notes per slide. Okay, so basically herbalism works alongside us, it works with us, not on us. That makes sense. So herbs tend to work in synergy with each other, but also with us. So one herb can have many different actions and it can work on many different body systems. So ultimately herbalism is something that it is holistic. It's not something that it is just one particular area. Okay, and ultimately working with herbs, it can help us to feel more centered, more grounded, more aligned. Okay, sorry, there we go. Okay, so as we use herbs in our daily life, we can have that connection with the herbs and with nature itself, particularly if we're growing our own, so whether that's in the garden and pots and things like that. And because of that, you can become aware of the seasons, the cycles, which very much can bring you into balance with everything there. Also, when you are working with the plants, you learn to listen. A lot of them will, speak to you if you sit with them. Part of what this looks like is doctrine of signatures. So plants themselves can actually tell you what they're for. So how often has walnuts been used for brain health? Because they look like a brain. So they align with the different body parts. Would be another one. So celery, lymphatics. So I guess it's kind of long and stringy, very cleansing. Yeah, so it's a good way to, if you're starting to learn herbs or working with plants, this is quite a useful tool, and that you can see what different plants are for. So why herbalism is easy? You're probably doing it most of the time already without even realizing that you're doing it. So that peppermint tea that you make when you've had a bit too much to eat to help with your indigestion, chamomile for helping to soothe and calm, fresh basil on your pizza, parsley as a garnish. So a lot of the time we'll use herbs, within food, which is still medicine. But yeah, you can be learning to utilize that for, I guess, further medicinal type properties. So in terms of being able to grow your own, so you have access to fresh herbs when you need them. And doing it this way, it means generally it's organic. You know that there's no sprays or bits and pieces on it. A lot of herbs, and even things like celery, they are very high in water content, which means they absorb all of the sprays and pesticides and all the wonderful things. So it will mean that what you're using is full of vital force energy, and that is what is going into your system. Oh, hang on, sorry. So in terms of accessibility as well, depending on what herb it is will depend on what element you may use to help it as medicine. So you can use things like water for infusions, decoctions, with usually that's sort of like your teas and things like that. You can infuse them into vinegars, so you can use it again within kitchen and food prep. There are some, particularly for little kids and things like that, glycetrax, so marshmallow root is one that is really good for that. It absorbs really well, nice and soothing on the throat. But it also can make herbs that, are a little bit bitter or hard to digest. It makes it a little bit easier to go down. Oils are another form that is quite nice. You can infuse a lot of herbs into oils. So for kitchen, but medicinally. So kawa is one that that would be one of my favourite herbs, known as the pepper tree. But you can infuse that into almond oil. When you decant that, it comes out like a beautiful green colour, and you can use that for aches and pains, muscle rub, that type of thing. Like it has that anti-inflammatory, skin healing, pain relieving properties to it. Again, calendula is also another herb that you can infuse into oils. Antifungal, anti-inflammatory, really good for cradle cap, sensitive skins, that type of thing. So good for little bubbers, but also good for older people too. But it's certainly calendula, chamomile, those are quite gentle types of herbs. There are some that are quite a bit stronger, but those are quite nice and gentle. Poultices for wound healing, things like onion packs can be quite helpful for sores and bits and pieces, creams, balms, topical applications. So these are some of the ways that you can look at adding herbs to everyday bits and pieces. And probably the one in terms of preservation for it lasting the longest would be tinctures. That is basically where the raw material, the herb, is in alcohol. And yeah, basically you can have a tincture that will last for a good 2-3 years depending. And that's going to give you the highest strength, usually, of that particular herb. With that you can blend tinctures, and you can have those internally safely. Okay, so yeah, pretty much how you would use and preserve the herb would a lot of the time depend on the constituents of the plant. Okay, all right. Now, I'm a mum of 3 boys, as you can imagine. Cuts, scrapes, breaks. But over the years, I found actually, with herbal medicine in terms of everyday life, I had a cupboard stacked with stuff. So I mean, I always had something on hand if something went wrong. So now it'll be my grandbabies, there'll be little bits and pieces. So it will mean that I've got something in the cupboard that is nice and gentle, that can be helpful and supportive. And particularly if there's been a time where it's like, you feel quite anxious, that can be quite calming and grounding. But of course, if it is something terrible, you make sure you take them to the doctors or to A&E. Okay, so everyday herbs generally, are safe. However, there are a few precautions. If I had $1 for every time somebody said to me, oh, it's natural. And I was like, yeah, how do you think it works though? So there are, a few precautions. So everything is medicine, everything is poison. It just depends on the dose. So historically, women, their weapon of choice was poison, pretty much, because you can't taste arsenic. It's easy to hide. Hemlock, made into infusions and used at executions. So just because it's natural doesn't mean that it can't do a little bit of damage. So that brings me to the first list of safety precautions. 100% identification when using a plant. If you are not 100% sure, do not use it. Hemlock looks a lot like wild carrot. So if you are not sure and you use the wrong one, quality matters. So if you're learning and working with herbs and beginning to make your own bits and pieces, your medicine will only be as good as your raw material. So if you are drying herbs and things, make sure there's no mold, there's no bugs, all those bits and pieces. Educate yourself on the herb that you're working with. Ideally, you don't want to be doing too many at a time, but become familiar with its botanical name so that you know that you've got the right species. Become familiar with any potential contraindications with medications or any potential side effects. There can be some, one would be licorice root, can up your blood pressure if you're on that for too long. Some can have a laxative effect, which may or may not be what you're after with that particular herb. And also dosaging. Check to make sure that you're within a correct dosaging range. I do have some books down here that I will show you a little bit later on. Actually, I should probably do it now, really, shouldn't I? Okay. Right. So, Rosemary Gladstar, she is a lovely lady. She's over in the States. But this book, it gives you really good quality information on the herbs and how you can actually make the preparations safely so that you're able to take them within correct dosaging range. This is another good lady, Rosalie. She also has been a herbalist for a very long time. Her works are very good in terms of if you're looking for information on how to add herbs to your everyday life. This is a book that I actually really love. This is with herbs and lining with the different body systems, and in terms of, for example, motherwort is one that very much aligns with the heart for mothers who have been overgiving, who are stressed, who have a heck of a lot on their plate. That's one that's going to really help nourish and soothe and bring back strength. The other one that we have, now these are lovely. All of you may be aware of Mary Ellen. She is a lovely local herbalist, and these are her books. So you can get these from Health 2000 in Highbury. We do sell them. It's not a plug for that. It's just more, she's an amazing herbalist with a lot of knowledge, and she has paired up with Eliza Burgess for these books, and it goes about talking about New Zealand herbs and things and how you can use those and the properties of the plants and things like that. So those are informative. The other thing in terms of safety is making sure that you're using the correct part of the plant. So as an example, dandelion root and dandelion leaf. Anybody know the difference and what you'd use it for? No? Okay. So dandelion root, liver. So it's going to help with detoxing and cleansing the liver, helping to protect those hepatocytes. Leaf, dandelion leaf, kidneys. So that would be the one that you use as a diuretic. It's going to have a lot more minerals in there that's going to help to balance the diuretic effect. So if you're using any herbs, make sure that you're using the correct part of the plant. Okay. All right. Okay, so homeopathy and herbal medicine. So there is a difference between the two. So homeopathy was created by a German physician called Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. He was highly educated, background in medicine, chemistry, botany. He also was very versed in languages, and part of how he actually got into creating homeopathy was because he was translating medical texts. But he was in a time where physicians would use leeches and bloodletting and use all sorts of toxic metals, and that was the normal practice of the day for treating people. You survived in spite of, not because of, treatments. So he wanted to create a more safer form of medicine for his patients. And as he was translating texts, he came across particular paragraph, and it said, you know that bark that's for malaria, that one treats malaria because it's bitter. And he was kind of like, it didn't quite seem to fit with him. So he created the tincture and he took the medicine, and he observed over that week that he developed the symptoms of malaria. He was quite fine and healthy before that. And so from there, inquiring minds, he was like, okay, he began to do scientific testing, and he documented everything. And that was where like treating like came about. So physicians of his day very much tried to discredit him, but all of his work, because of how he had done it, all very scientifically based, was able to be replicated. So you got consistent findings. So over the course of at least over a decade, he was able to, like a good 90 ingredients, he was able to create medicine from those, which was pretty fantastic. So how homeopathy is made: there is the raw material made into mother tincture, which would be with alcohol. From that, a small amount is taken and diluted, and then it is succussed. And it is through that it potentizes the remedy. And then it goes through that process again, and it is potentized again. So the more dilute and the more succussed it is, the higher the potency. So that is how that works. I know that it seems a little bit, I don't know, I guess it's an energetic imprint, but the fact that his research was able to be replicated means that there's some substance to it. So then the liquid was then put onto the little lactose tablets. It's absorbed, and then you get to use them. Now we also have liquid sprays, the little pastilles that you can have. Generally, 30C is about a standard potency level now. Practicing homeopathy, it's a lot. So in terms of like treats like, you've got to be fairly, but with all of the different little bits and pieces. However, there are still a lot of good homeopaths around Auckland. But homeopathy now is generally quite widely available to everybody. And there is a lot of information out there now, so a lot of it you can probably, pair it up fairly well. There's also a lot of blends and things now too, which can make it a little bit easier. But yeah, so as you can see, that's quite different to how you would use herbal medicine. It uses the whole plant. You can get up to a 1M in homeopathy, which is very, very strong. But certainly for complex cases and things like that, you would want to go and see a homeopath. So there we go. The main sort of difference is there. Herbal medicine uses all the plant material in its preparations. Doesn't require a huge amount of processing time, and depending, but usually, the active constituents of the plant are able to work in aiding the body to heal, and can be ingested as food or medicine, or applied topically as required. Homeopathy, no raw material in the finished preparations. Now what that does mean, in terms of going back to arsenic or other types of toxic metals that they may have been using back in the day, you can actually make homeopathic preparations and they're safe from things that you wouldn't normally actually be able to ingest. So that can be potentially a good thing. So homeopathy, diluted, succussed for potentization. The remedy is specific, like treating like, and pills, liquid sprays, creams and gels. So probably the most common one that most people are really familiar with would be arnica. Fantastic for most muscle things and all the bits. The only thing is you can't put it on open skin if you're applying topically, but I can say when I busted my hip a few months back and I was downing that bottle of arnica, it was only 30C, but it helped, it was great. Yeah, speaking of children, I must say another little, in terms of homeopathy working, my oldest boy, he'd had a few bits and pieces and I had it up on top of the fridge, it's not like I'd left it lying around. But he must have had an inkling, and I came out in the morning, he's like, "Mummy, I drank all my medicine." And I'm like, "Oh." But what he would have done is prove the remedy, you know? Like, so in that respect, homeopathy is safe, it's gentle, it's good with children, you can use it with pets, you can use it older people, and with medications, you know? So whereas with herbal medicine, it's quite different, you'd have to be a little bit careful with different things. So, that's that. Yeah, so basically, I mean, herbalism is generally quite simple, it's accessible, you can bring that into your everyday life with, whether it's in your garden, or if you're a little bit like me and you can't see it, you're going to forget about it and it's going to die, you can put it on pots on your deck or wherever, and you know you've got access to that. But, you know, being able to get bits and pieces to create remedies and things that you need is fairly accessible and generally safe when you stick to the guidelines. Both herbal medicine and homeopathy do support healing well, just they work in slightly different ways. Okay, so you can find me, as I said, at Health 2000 in Highbury. I'm always there. The only days I'm not there are Sunday and Monday. But we do have a full herbal dispensary there. We have got myself and another naturopath on there, so we can dispense and create your formulations for you. Which the good thing about it is we can specify that to your symptoms and what you're working through. And yeah, I am also at Woven Roots Apothecary, and yeah, I will do full consultations, I do Reiki healings and all of that sort of thing, so that is very much a bringing together of everything. But I think what I love the most about working with herbs, it is holistic and it works on everything. It doesn't just work on one specific thing. Anybody have any questions? No? No? Okay. All right, I think that's done.
Can I ask something about arnica?
Yeah, sure.
You said you swallowed it,
Yes.
so it's not liquid.
So you've got a variety of different forms. So you have the little lactose pills that you can have. Those were the ones I was downing. So you can have acute and chronic dosing. So with the acute form, you can be having several pills every 15 minutes until you get some relief. So you've got the pills, you've got it in liquid or spray form, which can be certainly even things like the teething spray. It's great, you can do that and then you don't get your fingers bitten off. Those sorts of things can be helpful, but yeah. Yeah.
What's your go-to for like kids' immunity? Is there like a go-to of yours?
Might depend on age.
Say like 2 to 6.
Okay. Just as an overall immune support, we don't make our own vitamin C. Animals do, which is why they don't get sick, but we don't. So, and fruit, you don't actually get as much as what you would think. You still need to eat it because it's got all the other good things in. But vitamin C, probiotics, gut health, a whole lot of your immune system's in the gut. Food.
Yeah.
Food is medicine. And I know it's not easy because a lot of the time they can be fussy and they don't like things. If they are super fussy, potentially they could be a little bit low in zinc, also good for immunity, but zinc may be a something. But in terms of herbs, echinacea, the kids' version though, that's in a glycetract, because if it's good quality echinacea, it's got alkaloids in it that are going to make your tongue tingle and you're going to think, wow, but it works.
Cool.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of the time, you know, like elderberry and things like that are, well, taste a bit nicer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay. You're welcome if you want to have a look at anything.